What is up, Rumble? What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Crypto Breakdown. I'm your host, Ryan Matta. We are going to dive right into all things Bitcoin today. I have a special guest joining us today. The gentleman's name is Mr. Rob Wallace. He is the co-founder of BitcoinNews.com. Mr. Rob Wallace, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me, Ryan.
Hey, it's an honor to have you on the show, my friend. So let's get a little bit of a background. I want to hear a little bit about your story, but I want to talk about yourself personally. So can you give us a little quick intro on yourself, how you got involved with Bitcoin? We're going to kind of start from the beginning and work our way through it.
Yeah, I think the story has its logical beginning back in 2008, 2009 with the financial crisis. I was in college. I was at Tufts University thinking I wanted to join the U.S. government, be a diplomat, something like that. And I saw the financial crisis happen before my eyes, and I came home from class one day, and Hank Paulson, the Secretary of the Treasury, came on TV and said, if we don't give the banks $700 billion, then they're going to have martial law. We're going to have tanks in the streets, and these bankers messed up, but you guys got to pay for it. And as soon as I heard that, something's wrong here, right? I'm studying economics, Keynesian economics at a major university. Wow. And I think, wait, something's just so fishy here. So that led me down the rabbit hole, right? And I looked into the Iraq War, of course, and 9/11, and everything that had happened over the last 6 or 7 years of American history. And I was like, we seem to be going in the wrong direction here, right? And that led me to the Austrian School of Economics, hard money, gold and silver. Ron Paul was still in Congress at the time, and he was a vanguard for these beliefs. And so I pretty much gave up my desires of joining the U.S. government in any shape or form in that regard, and decided to go on my own path. Wound up going to China. I studied Chinese while I was in school, so I lived in Shanghai, China for 4 years following that. Had a lot of fun, was throwing events, had a band, started my YouTube career there and video production. And yes, and came back to New York City, did more video production, was working last at Barstool Sports as a senior producer for a travel show there. And come at the end of 2022, I said, I want to use my video production skills towards my passion, which is Bitcoin. I got into Bitcoin super intensely during 2020, COVID, the money printing again. The money printing started me on my hard money journey back in 2008, 2009. And then it was reignited once again in 2020 when I saw what they were doing to the US dollar, the thing that the whole entire world runs on at this moment, and how they were stealing our purchasing power by printing $6 trillion worth of it within 18 months, right? So that got me into Bitcoin, and it's been a 4-year journey of studying Bitcoin intensely, and been working on Bitcoin News for just over a year now, and running it since September. And I love it. I get to wake up every single day and spread the gospel of hard money and truth and a new paradigm moving forward. And yeah, it feels good to be on what I think is the right side of history here.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there, specifically with the Austrian economics, because I know a lot of people don't understand the least about it. So let's start. I guess that was the first part that kind of caught my eye. So can you give our audience a general understanding of what Austrian economics is, how it works, and just an over-level view of it?
Yeah, so Ludwig von Mises was an Austrian in Vienna in the 1800s, and he came up with his theory of economics, which is that essentially a government needs to run on a hard money standard in order to be prosperous. Then in the early 1900s, we had Keynes, who was influential in Britain during World War I, and his policies were later adopted, but he's of the belief that governments can simply print money, fiat, and are able to create a prosperous society through that. So we have two competing thoughts, where one, you can make money out of thin air and push it towards the things that the government deems necessary for the economy to grow. And the other, Austrian school, is based on a hard money standard, proof of work, putting in effort to create money and having it be outside of the government's hands in terms of money creation.
Mm-hmm. So, like, oops, wrong button. With what our government has done over the last 6 years and how much money they're printing. So a lot of my audience especially over on LFA TV, they're not really comprehending how detrimental it is to your family and your future when your government's depreciating the value of your currency at 7% per year. So can you explain a little bit about the devaluation of currency and how when our government prints money, that affects us, specifically the weight on the middle class?
Yeah, so economics is essentially the study of scarcity, right? And when something is scarce, it is more valuable. And when something is abundant, it's free, right? I mean, oxygen is abundant and we don't charge to breathe. Mm-hmm. So when the government is able to print money out of thin air, every single dollar that they print steals value from the dollars in your bank account. It took over 200 years for the American government to amass the first $1 trillion worth of debt, right? And then when
years?
Over 200 years. It wasn't until I think the 80s in which we reached $1 trillion worth of debt under Reagan. And then by the time we get to George Bush, we're $6 trillion in debt. And then what happened to George Bush? Of course, we enter into these forever wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, and we're just pouring trillions of dollars into this. So then it's 6 trillion by the time Bush leaves, and then we get to Obama, and under Obama, I believe it doubles from 8 to 16 trillion dollars. And then and it just keeps getting faster and faster and faster, right? The amount of time between $1 trillion being added to the national debt gets shorter and shorter and shorter as we enter into this sort of debt doom loop, right? And so it doubled under Obama, and then I think it went from the low 20s to high 20s under Trump, and then it's went from high 20s to we're at $34 trillion worth of debt today under Biden. So it really doesn't matter which party is in power. Both like to spend. As the U.S. has the world reserve currency, we are in a privileged position that we print the money and the rest of the world needs to use it in order to do trade. The world still uses dollars to transact in oil. So say Germany wants to get oil, they're not going to go to Saudi Arabia with euros. They need to trade those euros into dollars and then give Saudi Arabia those dollars to get that oil. So we're in a pretty privileged position in America, but we are completely ruining that privilege by adding all this debt, spending money on wars and handing out money to people that illegally enter this country and all the craziness. You can't spend your way to prosperity, and that's what the government under Keynesian policies thinks that they can do.
Well said, my friend. And it's so funny that you literally just brought that up. I was getting ready to make a short yesterday, and I was on the usdebtclock.org, and it shows right here from Reagan to Bush, we went from 1 trillion to 3.5 trillion. And then Clinton took it from 5. Clinton, what's crazy about this is Clinton is the only one who, Clinton only increased our debt by 500 billion his second term. And then Bush went from 7 to 9. And then Obama took it to 14. And then Obama took it to 18. And then, like you said, Trump took it to 2024. And when we see what's going on in this country, and even with Trump coming back, the damage that's going to be done to the US dollar, do you think that there's ever a way that the United States digs itself out of the hole that it is in with the US dollar and $34 trillion in debt?
No, it's essentially unpayable at this point, right? Just the interest on the debt has passed this year $1 trillion, right? So we take in $4 to $5 trillion worth of tax revenue a year, and we've got to spend a quarter of that just on interest. It doesn't go towards anything. It just goes down towards paying the interest on the debt, right? So it just disappears as soon as we pay that. So Yeah, I mean it's wild. And then we've got Social Security, we've got Medicare, we've got Medicaid. These are unfunded liabilities that, if you plot them out for everybody who's alive in America and what they expect to get by the time that they die, that's hundreds of trillions of dollars worth of liability.
212
Unfunded
to be
liability.
exact.
Yeah. So it's
$634,000 per citizen is what they would have to tax each of us individually to pay off that.
and the average American can't afford $1,000 emergency, right? So they're 600 times that in terms of debt for this country. You're born here and you're $600,000 in debt to people in the past who spent it on wars and things that you had no agreement to. So it's no, I don't think that we can pay it back. And what does that mean? That means that they need to essentially, nominally, they're going to try to pay it back. And how do they do that? They are going to destroy the value of the dollar. So that's why things are getting so expensive, because the more that they print, the more dollars there are chasing scarce goods, right? That's why a house in 1970 was $25,000, and today is 20 times that. It's not like the four walls around you got 20 times more valuable. It's that the dollars that you're using to purchase that house got 20 times less valuable. So that is their escape hatch, the dollar. The value of the dollar is their escape hatch, and they're going to devalue it in order to address that debt, or attempt to. So, I mean, this is a story as old as time, right? I mean, Rome saw this. They were clipping coins in order to devalue their currency. Weimar Germany had a giant debt to pay back after World War I, and the whole entire world forced them to pay back all their war reparations. Boom, you got hyperinflation there. So there's no paper currency that's lasted more than a couple hundred years, right? And I'm sorry, but as an American, it's tough, but I mean, the dollar will undoubtedly face the same fate one day.
And what does that look like for America, do you think? I mean, in my personal opinion, we are at a point where I think a lot of people are waking up. What happened with COVID and what's been done to America over the last like 3 or 4 years has really taken people to go, I just ignore it. I'm just going to put my head in the sand and look the other way, and it's not going to affect me because it never has. It didn't affect my parents. It's kind of how our country is, Don't talk about religion. Don't talk about politics with your family. That's kind of something that we were raised up on. I know my family was anyways. And now you're seeing so many people wake up. You're seeing the media lose their ability to manipulate the narrative. You're specifically seeing corrupt people being exposed, like Elizabeth Warren, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer. These are the real anti-Bitcoin advocates out there. So these are the people that are telling you not to buy Bitcoin. My favorite thing with onboarding people over on LFA TV that aren't into politics, especially when somebody gets in the live chat and starts saying something bad about Bitcoin, I go, you're sounding like a lot like Nancy Pelosi right now. And they just instantly stop, right? So it's like, so many people are waking up. What does it look like for America if inflation comes back again? I know a lot of people are expecting, inflation to run back above and even higher than 9%. What does it look like if inflation comes back to America and people start fleeing the dollar? Is that possible, or are too many Americans in debt to try to make that transition? How do you see this playing out over the next year?
Yeah, it's hard to tell exactly, but I mean, there's plenty of scenarios. Some people call for the Brazilification of America, right? Where you start seeing cities, barbed wire going up, and gated communities, because I mean, there's this general sense, I think, of sort of quiet desperation in this country. In America, we like to believe that we can pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and we can make something of ourselves just by the fact that we are here in this country, and that for the last 250 years, that's what people have been able to do. But we're sort of at this point when the money's broken, everything sort of cascades after that. And we're at this point where unless we address the money problem, none of these social issues that we're at each other's necks about are going to get fixed at all. I mean, you saw it in Weimar Germany too, right? I mean, the money was destroyed and they just went completely into debauchery. And that's sort of what America is doing as well. So, I mean, I think on an individual basis, yes, there are things that anyone can do. Save in Bitcoin, take a portion of your earnings and of course put it in Bitcoin that is appreciating in value over time compared to the dollar that is depreciating. Learn skills that are valuable. Get outside. I think personally, I think the three most important things are being mentally, physically, and spiritually fit, right? And if you are on point with those three things, then you'll be able to face whatever life throws at you. Because even if you're an extremely rich person like Bill Gates walking outside with man boobs and and just, I mean, you can see on their faces like these people are not mentally or spiritually well, right? They're sick from some spiritual disease, and fiat, I think, plays a large part in that. So I think it doesn't cost anything to do push-ups. It doesn't cost anything to go to the library and read a book or read an article online and further your skills. And it doesn't cost anything to pray or meditate. So, I mean, I think it all starts with the individual. You make the change in your life, and you can you start seeing the world outside of you change, you know, whether it's your friends, your family, and your physical circumstances.
That's so good. You touched on something really there. You said over the last 200 years, you know, you could bootstrap yourself. And I think that was the American dream. A single male could come to America, and this was as of up to 1970. A single male could support a family of 3 on one salary, working 40 hours a week. Back when I remember when I was a kid, you know, if Christmas or something fell on a holiday or on a weekend, it was like you weren't going out and spending your Christmas money because nothing was open on Sunday. You know, if the day after Christmas was Sunday, it was like, oh, sorry, you got to wait till Monday, because it was almost a sin. I mean, even slaves didn't work on Sundays. Even slaves had Sundays off because it was the Lord's Day. And that built communities. People would go outside, they would talk to each other, they would have events. You know, we weren't all connected to the cell phone. And now fast forward, we're at a point where the American dream is dead. Is that directly because of the money is broken, correct?
Yeah, I mean, America was on a gold standard from its existence until, 1913, the Federal Reserve was created, right? And we were still on a gold standard then. And then in 1931, FDR did Executive Order 6102, and he confiscated the gold from the people. Why? Because we were in the Great Depression. The government was dead broke. They needed to take all the gold in and then revalue it, right? So it was $20 an ounce, and they revalued it to $35 an ounce. So essentially cutting the value of the dollar essentially in half, right? And so then citizens from 1931 on weren't allowed to own gold in this country, but the dollar itself was still backed on it, right? Bretton Woods at the end of World War II, they all came together and said, okay, the whole entire world is essentially destroyed except for America. It's this one place that still has industrial capacity. It wasn't bombed to rubble like Europe was. And all the gold had essentially fled to America from these European countries during the conflict, right, for safekeeping. So at the end of World War II, America said, okay, we'll have our dollar be backed by gold, and we'll be the world reserve currency. And then what do we see? We saw the most, one of the most prosperous eras in economic history, the 1950s America, where a lot of people harken back to today and say that's the golden age in America, where, of course, yeah, one man could provide for a full family, put a roof over their heads, and have time on the weekends to spend with his kids, and have the wife stay at home and things. I mean, of course, not everything was great then, but economically, people were pretty happy in America on this gold standard. And then what do we see? We saw the government start spending a lot of money. They thought, okay, hey, we got this reserve currency. We can do whatever we want with it. Then we started going into wars, right? We went into Korea in the 50s, and then we went into Vietnam in the 60s. And then JFK was assassinated, and Lyndon B. Johnson came in, and he said, we can have both guns and butter, right? We can have the Great Society at home, we can have Medicare and Medicaid, and we can hand out money to our citizens, and we can spend all this money in a quagmire in Vietnam for over a decade, and it doesn't matter because we've got the strongest currency in the world, we've got all the gold here, and everybody needs our dollars. But then we saw in the late 60s, the French president said, "Hey, wait, do you have all that gold that you say you do? We'd like our gold back." So they actually sent warships to come and get their gold. And we begrudgingly gave them their gold back. But then when we realized, oh my God, is everybody going to come for their gold here now? So then in 1971, Reagan closed the gold window, and he severed the tie between the dollar and gold. And since then, the U.S. I mean, of course, he said that was a temporary measure. There's nothing more permanent than a temporary governmental measure, right? And since then, it's been fiat. It's been by decree. And so we went from the world's largest creditor of all time in the early 1960s to today, the largest debtor in the history of the world, right? I mean, $34 trillion. There's nobody who's ever been able to amass that much debt. And it's been a short amount of time, right? I mean, 1971 was a little over 50 years ago. So we completely destroyed all that goodwill that we had and that prosperity in short order, and the baby boomers were able to ride this out, right? They were born in a time of sound fiscal policy, essentially, and then once they went to college and entered the workforce, they severed the gold window. But then, what did we see since the 80s? After the recession in the 80s? Well, I mean, assets have just gone crazy, right? So if you had bought a house in the 80s, if you had gotten into stocks in the 80s and you had just ridden that until now, you've done pretty well. And that's why these boomers are sitting on tens of trillions of dollars. I think $40 trillion plus worth of wealth is in the boomer hands right now. And people in Gen X and the millennials, they're suffering. They weren't able to ride this great monetary wave the same way the boomers were. And I mean, I don't fault the boomers for doing it. I mean, there was sort of just circumstance, right? But yep. I think when you hear a lot of older people say, I mean, when I was your age, I was able to buy a house and have all my stuff in order. But it's just not the same thing. Why? Because the money's broken, and the money's been broken for a while now. And I think the only real answer for people in the millennial and Gen X age brackets is Bitcoin.
Rob, I don't think you could be more accurate. I lived it. I know it. I grew up in a time where it was go to school, get a good job, put money into your 401k, save. And I grew up and I was partying, and I went down to Florida when I was 18 to go to college, or 19. And actually went down there for a career job. And then my friend's dad got robbed. Ended up being down in Florida, like, oh, screw it, I'm going to go to school down here. I'm going to be a bartender, worked my way through college. Ended up just living spring break, right? And came back to Michigan. And, a lot of my friends had graduated college. They were getting good jobs. They were driving brand new trucks. They were buying houses. And I was looking at myself going, man, you're bartending. You need to get it together, right? So go to school, get a good job, put money into your 401k. So then when my son's mom was pregnant and I felt him kick that first time in her stomach, that's when it you kind of grow up really quick. And I was like, okay, took a job at a factory that I knew that if I stuck it out and I worked my butt off, they would pay for my school. I could work my way up the top, and that's what I did. And I went from, basically, when I first started, there was a contract at $10 an hour. Then I went to 14, then I went to 18, then I went up to 22. And this was over like a 3 or 4 year period. And I kept making more money and more money and more money. But my living standards never changed once. And I came from that generation. And I've talked about this in a few of my live streams. A guy named, I think his name's like Luke Brennan, and he uses this analogy, and he says, back in the like 900 AD, when in the times when Israel was enslaved or the Jews were enslaved back there, and there was like a 400-year stretch of slavery. He goes, if you were born at year 200 and your parents were slaves, your grandparents were slaves, and your great-great-grandparents were slaves, you didn't know what freedom felt like. You just knew being a slave, that's what you did. You didn't know anything else. It was just normal to you. And I look back at what we're in this, 200, 100 years deep into this fiat Ponzi scheme, right? Mm-hmm. Which is basically fiat slavery, where we didn't know different. So when I was going to school and getting that good job and thank God I went to a company that would pay for my school, or I'd be in $40,000 worth of student loan debt to get the degree I got.
Mhm.
You're literally born into fiat slavery, and you don't know anything else. You think it's normal. Your parents thought it's normal. We've allowed our government, like you've said right here on the screen. I mean, every single president, everyone, including Trump, we all absolutely love Trump. Now, I think Trump had plans to pay that debt off. I don't think Trump was literally just spending into oblivion. The USMCA, that one pipeline, would have probably paid off a good chunk of that debt by now, because we would have been exporting more oil than Saudi Arabia, Russia, and every other country combined. But outside of that, they still all spend money. So how do people wake up from this? What is your answer? I know, and I want to kind of transition over into Bitcoin news. Um, can you give a little bit of advice for new people that maybe are just first learning about Bitcoin? Where should they start? Where should they get started? How do they get out of that fiat slavery mindset?
Yeah, I mean, money is essential, right? For any complicated or complex society, you need money to exist. It allows us to specialize, and it has brought us great wealth. If one person can farm and another person can make clothes and another person can build a computer, then we each are able to focus and get better at our own skills and be more productive. And the only thing that facilitates that is money. So we don't need to barter or be self-sufficient in everything that we each individually do. So money is fundamental. Don't be afraid of money. It's a part of life. It's one half of every transaction, and it's really important that we understand it, right? It's like a fish in water. Does the fish know it's in water? Us with money, do we know that money is literally one half of everything that we pretty much do with other people? And so you don't be afraid of it, right? Study it, look into it, and fundamentally, instinctually, it's very clear that money doesn't grow on trees, right? It shouldn't be just made out of thin air. But the way the fiat Ponzi, the way that the world is set up right now, is that they can just issue debt and make new money, and we are constantly trying to feed back or pay back the interest on that debt endlessly. So it's a hamster wheel that no one can really get off, unless the world transitions onto a money that is deflationary, right? One that, see, all this technology, I mean, Jeff Booth is a great book to read, The Price of Tomorrow. And it talks about the power of technology and its deflationary impacts, right? I mean, back 20 years ago, you had a flashlight, you had a calculator, you had a camera, and now it's all combined into your cell phone, right? And back then, that all those different things used to cost so much more than just one cell phone does now. So technology, the advancement of technology, should bring the prices of everything down. But that's not what we're seeing. We're seeing the prices of everything continue to explode. But Bitcoin as a deflationary currency, there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. So as people get more productive, as technology increases, the prices over time come down in terms of Bitcoin. So back in 2017, the average house was, I think, 125 Bitcoin. And today, the average house in America is less than 10 Bitcoin. So, I mean, if you save in Bitcoin, if you save in a currency that is deflationary, and deflationary is such a scary word in Keynesian economics. They say if things deflate, then the economy is going to collapse. No. Technology and productivity should drive deflation, and that's a good thing. It means the things that you buy around you are getting cheaper over time, and that's what we want, right? We don't want to be on this endless hamster wheel of spending more and more money for the things that we could get yesterday for less. And bringing it back to the government, you look at everything the government gets their hands in, whether it's college tuition or healthcare, these prices are just skyrocketing, right? And what are the things that are getting cheaper over time? TVs. That's about it, right?
Yeah.
But that's technology, right? And technology should, just think about the big screen TVs, that how much they cost when we were kids compared to what a flat screen 60-inch TV costs now, right? It's pretty crazy if we allow these technological forces to take hold, and we had a deflationary currency such as Bitcoin that allowed us to capture these productivity gains. And that's the beautiful thing about Bitcoin, is that it captures the productivity advancements of everyone, right? If if technology increases, prices go down, and it's the future. The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth. Highly recommend this book.
Now, I want to transition. Those are very rare words. I really like that book too. And the Fiat Standard as well. The Fiat and the Bitcoin Standard by Safadine. Is that how I say his name?
Yeah, Saifedean Ammous.
Safadine, yep. So let's talk a little bit about your website. We got Bitcoin News over here. You said you got involved with Bitcoin News. How long ago was that?
So I joined a little bit over a year ago just as a video editor, looking to take my skills from video production into the world of Bitcoin.
Yep.
And then took it over with a fellow co-founder completely in September of last year. So running it for about what's it been, 6-7 months now, the two of us running it. And so we've got a team of about 12, 13 people around the world. We've got an editor in Iran, a designer in Thailand, my guy Daniel, who's in Italy, who helps me out on Twitter. I think he's watching this right now. Yeah, so we've got this global team, and that's the amazing thing about Bitcoin, right? It connects people from around the world with a common set of beliefs and work ethic too, right? I find Bitcoiners to be very hard workers, very intelligent, and willing to even take less money to help this cause, right? As soon as you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, you realize, wow, this is so important and the word needs to be spread. So what can I do to help out? And the people that work with us find their outlet through Bitcoin News. So yeah, we've got about 5 or 6, actually pushing that up to about 8 to 10 articles a day coming out on bitcoinnews.com. I'm on Twitter almost 24/7, delivering the breaking news over there. And we've got, we just started up our YouTube channel, a new initiative over there with Luke Mikic, who's an Australian YouTuber, Bitcoiner. He's been in the space for about 6-7 years now. And we're very happy to have him on board as part of the team. I think we're going to see big things in terms of YouTube for Bitcoin News over the next year.
Man, congratulations. I absolutely love it. So can you walk us through this website a little bit? And I want to hear a lot more about it. So what are we looking at here? I see we got adoption, lightning, legal, markets, mining, videos. Give me an overview. If you're new to Bitcoin, where's the go-to spot to get educational content and kind of learn about the history of Bitcoin?
Yeah, so right now, I think the best thing to do with Bitcoin News is just to show up every morning around 9 a.m. and you'll see 5 brand new articles right there under breaking news.
Well, you guys got 5 new articles every morning at 9 a.m.?
Yeah.
Oh man, you guys, my show goes live at 10. You guys are going to be my go-to spot to pull up news articles. I can't wait.
Yeah, definitely. And then if you scroll down a bit, we've got our editor's picks there. Some highlights from the last couple of days. Going down, you'll see about, and you can, if you click that button, subscribe now. It leads to our newsletter, which I highly recommend you sign up for. We deliver that every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. You get a roundup of the week's most pressing developments in Bitcoin. I take a lot of pride in editing that. We've got a writer, Bam, who's over in Sweden right now, but he writes that on Sundays. I edit it and we get it out on Monday mornings. And so it saves you I'm on Twitter all the time. And so if I could save anybody else that time so they can just read Bitcoin News Weekly on Monday and get caught up on everything that happens, I feel like I'm doing my service to the community. So yeah, highly recommend the newsletter, Bitcoin News Weekly. And right now, please.
No, go ahead. Keep going. No, finish what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's we're actually in the process of rebranding the website right now. And so within a matter of about, I think, 4 to 6 weeks, we should have a fresh new look for the website itself. It is the bull run. And so there's going to be a whole lot of newbies coming into the space. And I think they're going to be looking for Googling Bitcoin News. And we hope to be that first thing that comes up when they do so.
Sweet, man. Sweet. Do you guys have a dark mode feature coming? Do you know?
That's on the list. Yeah. Big
Sweet.
dark mode guy. Yeah, everybody in Bitcoin loves the dark mode. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when we're streaming, right? So like if you well, you can't see my
Yeah.
face right now, but when I pull up a white screen, it's like I turn another there's like another light source, right? Here, I'll show you an example. So
Yeah.
it's behind my screen there. You see the light reflection, or where is it at right there?
Mhm.
And if I go to a
Yeah.
dark scene, yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I'm a
Yeah.
dark mode guy, but I still absolutely love the site, man, and I'm excited to see
Cool.
the revamp. So when you guys are getting your news, how are you guys going about? Do you guys have sources in the industry, sources on like Michael Saylor's team? How are you guys getting your news? Where do those sources come from? In your art, your authors and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's crazy how Twitter has become essentially the go-to place for news, right?
Well,
Whether it's some anonymous pleb who sees something in an SEC filing, or it's the CEO of Grayscale himself putting out a message on there. Twitter is where a lot of the news breaks, and I'm on there. I make sure to capture that, send that over to the editorial team, and we turn around an article within. We'd like to make it a couple of hours. Right now, it might be the next morning, but we make sure that all the biggest news is captured on a 24-hour cycle. But we do have relationships with some of the names in the space. Samson Mao, he's the head of Jan3. Jan3 is a company that works on nation state adoption. So just a couple of months ago, he was in Colombia meeting with the president there, as well as Suriname, another South American country. And after he met with those two presidents, he met with one of our reporters, Juan Galt, and we sat down and did an interview there. And yeah, so we've definitely made a lot of connections in the industry over the last year or two, and we have information coming to us, going out looking for stuff, and it's never a dull moment, right? You're always the news business. It can be a grind, but when it's about something that you're so passionate about, it usually just winds up being a lot of fun.
have you started to mess with the AI on Twitter and how, like for my shows on LFA TV, for example, if I'm busier and I get to the show late, I'm able to type into like Grok or however you say it, and I'll tell it to find me the top 5 trending news articles on a specific keyword, and then I'll tell it to summarize them. It'll go up and summarize them, give me bullet points, and it'll go and find the top trending articles on that. Are you guys using AI with your aggregating of news content, or have you guys looked into that yet?
So with Grok, yeah, I messed around with it a little bit. It's fun, but I think that so far my editorial prowess has been able to keep me one step ahead of that, in some regards, which is nice. But in terms of, I love the function, just the prompts, edit for clarity, on ChatGPT. You throw in a sentence there and it just perfects it, in perfect grammar. And so that helps get out
No way.
tweets that are worded properly. Yeah.
Oh man,
I mean, I think
that's
I think that's the most powerful use of these AI services right now, for me at least, is that you can just pretty much put out a stream of consciousness, and as long as you know you've got the right ideas and facts in there, it can just word it more beautifully than I can on average. So it's a helpful tool. Yeah.
And so it's bitcoinnews.com. You guys see a lot of the Lightning Network. Can you explain to our audience, because I know a lot of people are, in America, a lot of people are going broke. They don't have thousands of dollars. So they're buying their first 250 or their first 500 or $1,000 of Bitcoin on Coinbase or Binance, and then, or Bybit, any of these sites. And then you go to withdraw it and they're paying this $50. I can't tell you the amount of DMs. I'm like, dude, how am I supposed to use this? And I'm trying to explain the Lightning Network to them. Can you explain a little bit about what the Lightning Network is? And then can you explain to me, because I don't know this answer, why exchanges like Coinbase are not on the Lightning Network and don't have an opportunity for people to move their Bitcoin on the Lightning Network?
Yeah, good questions. So you can think of Bitcoin base layer 1, the protocol, sort of as a final settlement layer, right? So when you go out and use your Visa or MasterCard, paying with a credit card, that is not finally settled, right? It takes weeks before, or days before, the merchant can actually receive that money from a bank. So What Bitcoin on the base layer is every 10 minutes, the transactions are settled finally. And that means that it's more online with, say, a Fed wire or a central bank sending its hundreds of billions of dollars at once, and it's settled finally, and it's there. That happens every 10 minutes, and that's too slow for regular payments, right? You don't want to go and pay for a coffee and have to wait 10 minutes for it to be confirmed on the merchant's end that the money actually got there. So in order to solve that, they created Lightning, the Lightning protocol, which is a network layer 2 on top of Bitcoin. And what it opens up payment channels that are essentially instantaneous, right? So people will put their Bitcoin onto the Lightning network, and then they'll be able to send it instantaneously through the network to other people. So Lightning network, I'm sorry.
That was my end. That's the UTXO model, correct? Where they're opening a channel on Lightning Network. Say I have 1 Bitcoin, I can open a channel for 1 Bitcoin, and then throughout the day, people can interact with a balance up to 1 Bitcoin, and then I settle it, and I settle all transactions in one. Am I saying that right?
So yeah, the UTXO model is the base layer Bitcoin protocol. It's the payment channels on layer 2 that you're talking about there. But yeah, exactly. You have to put money onto the Lightning network so that it can be pushed through the network to its final destination. So with all these different Lightning nodes, the Bitcoin travels from person to person to person, as long as they have the liquidity in their channel, and it gets to the final destination. So you're not sending tens of thousands of dollars over the Lightning network like you would on the Bitcoin base layer. It's more for small payments, right? And the amazing thing about Lightning network is that you can send micropayments, right? Like less than a penny. You can stream payments. You can send half a penny every 30 seconds to somebody, say on this show. You know, if somebody was watching the show and wanted to support you, they could stream you sats through the Lightning network.
No way.
Yeah. And that's just completely infeasible with the current fiat system that we have right now. So yes, and then why does Coinbase not have Lightning? They've been dragging their feet on this for years. People have been demanding it since at least the last bull run, 2020, 2021. But Coinbase seems to be more distracted by their shitcoin casino and trying to make money off of people trading their altcoins and meme coins, and don't really seem to care too much about facilitating a more healthy Bitcoin ecosystem.
Does that blow your mind a little bit? A company that's basically made their bones off the back of Bitcoin, and you think they'd want to do everything that they could to help onboard as many people into the Bitcoin ecosystem. And
Yeah. I mean, Brian definitely. I mean, he had put out tweets from, I believe, 2015 saying that these other coins are a distraction and that Bitcoin is the one true cryptocurrency. But I mean, the fiat incentives are strong, and people get distracted by dollars. And he's definitely made a lot of money through Coinbase, and probably made more fiat via these. Trading of Bitcoin and altcoins.
Yeah, don't feel afraid to call them what they are over here, man. I got in in 2015. I was in class one day, and a gentleman brought in a Bitcoin miner, and I stayed after class, and I was actually open book test, and me sleeping through the intro of the class. I was there a little bit longer, enough time for him to go home, get his Bitcoin miner, and come back. So by the end of the class, I was the only one left with him. And he was showing the professor by the time I finished, and I just was instantly like, wait, you plug this thing into your wall and you pay the electricity, but then it pretty much makes you double. So if you $200 in electricity, you're kind of mining back in 2015 was about $200 worth of Bitcoin, right? And I was like, the wheels start spinning. I'm like, that's like an employee. And I'm like, well, if I can work some overtime next week, I can build 2 of those. And then all of a sudden now I got 2 employees working at my house while I'm at work, generating, money. And then you start learning about the skin in the game thing. But during that interaction, he goes, but you want to mine Ethereum. He goes, this is the future of cryptocurrency. And I was like, oh, what's Ethereum, And I pulled out my phone, or he goes, well, I'll tell you about it, but everybody always wastes my time. Nobody actually, gets into it. And I go, well, can I order it online? He goes, yeah. And I go, well, you put it in a shopping cart. I'll order it right now. He goes, you order it right now. I'll let you come over to my house and I'll build it for you and help you and teach you how to build one. And then that's when my journey into crypto started. I was mining Ethereum when it was $2.67. Fast forward into that bull run, right? The 2017. I was still under the impression like Bitcoin's an old technology, right? It's going to get surpassed by something that's more superior. Not understanding that what makes Bitcoin is the fact that it doesn't need to change. It is rock solid, and that's kind of what the integrity around Bitcoin is the fact that it doesn't change, and it's incorruptible. Now then I went into 2020, not owning enough Bitcoin, and then rode my portfolio up $564,000, and then watched it go all the way down. And then this summer I made it a mission. I mean, I was on like a bat out of hell. Anything I could do to work and generate more money to buy more Bitcoin, that's what I was doing. Now, don't get me wrong, I held a few other altcoins. I think I only hold 3 total. But explain to our audience, for people that don't understand Bitcoin, and almost everybody, every day I'm getting DMs, people going, well, I missed the boat. I can't buy a whole Bitcoin. It's not about the whole Bitcoin. Can you explain why it's so important for people to own Bitcoin and kind of make Bitcoin their main focus? I know people are going to be degenerates. We all were at one point, right? They're going to go out and chase these meme coins. But what percentage do you think is like a lot of Bitcoin maxis say 100% only Bitcoin, only Bitcoin. But, people are going to be degenerate. So if you want to cater to that little group, what percentage of Bitcoin do you think is realistically the right amount of Bitcoin that you should have in your wallet? Or at the very least, the minimum percentage that Bitcoin should make up of your portfolio?
Yeah, so I think just going back to why Bitcoin, what makes it different, right? So Bitcoin is it's a network, right? In the same way that the internet is a network. And you're never going to hear anybody say, oh, but they're going to make a new internet that's better, and we're not going to use this internet now. No, the internet is built in layers, and the base layer is TCP. And so you're not going to trade that network for another one, because you'd be the only one who's on your own, and there's no point in there's no network of one, right? So the Bitcoin was the discovery of digital scarcity, and no other crypto has been able to mimic that, right? Its monetary policy was set from the day that the first node started running back in 2009. And the monetary policy hasn't changed. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin. And in the beginning, when it was infantile in the first couple of years, somebody could have come in with a whole bunch of computing power and tried to 51% attack the network, right? To try to overpower the network. But now the network has grown to the point in which it is the strongest computer network in the world. There is nothing that compares to it. We are at 550 exahash per second. So I think that is essentially 550 quintillion equations being done per second protecting the network, right? So this is on a scale that's never been seen before on the planet Earth, and it's the invention of digital scarcity. And yeah, you're not gonna find that anywhere else. So in terms of all these other coins, yes, people like to think, oh, it's $70,000 now, I'm too late to it, I got to try to make my money on these meme coins, right? But at the end of the day, there's only one that is provable digital scarcity, and the rest can be easily shut down by the government. And a lot of these are just straight up rug pulls, right? I mean, there's devs who are able to, on the other end of it, just be able to yank out the liquidity when they see fit and leave you holding the bag. Thus the term bag holder, of course. So with Bitcoin, it's all open source code. If you can go and verify that there will only be 21 million Bitcoin, you can verify how many Bitcoin have been mined up into this very minute. And it's distributed across the world on tens of thousands of different computers, these nodes. And every 10 minutes, these nodes need to reconcile with each other the correct order of transactions since the very beginning. And if anybody tries to come in and say, oh, I've done this transaction, unless it's been verified by all the other nodes in the network, it'll just be kicked out, and we'll continue on with the chain that has reached consensus with all the nodes. So getting back to the question of what percentage of your portfolio should be in Bitcoin compared to shitcoins, I mean, I myself, when I first got into Bitcoin, I dabbled with some shitcoins as well, you know, with Ethereum and Kyber network, you know, and whatnot. And I think the most important thing is to realize that Bitcoin should be the majority of your holdings for sure if you first get started, and you can try to experiment and have fun with the other ones. And but I think the more you study and learn, Bitcoin will just become a bigger and bigger part of your portfolio over time until it's the only thing in your portfolio. So yes.
I'm on my way there, friend. I'm on my way there. I'd probably say about 75% Bitcoin right now. And you know, actually, it was actually more than that. But now the other alts are kind of running up a little bit more than Bitcoin is, so they're kind of making up a little bit bigger of a percentage of my portfolio. But I was talking about it last night in my live stream. I said, you know, last at the end of last bull run, guys, when we were going shitcoin hunting, basically in the bear market, we were buying all, you know, what we thought were going to be, you know, these next bull run projects, and they're like 90% of them are rug pulls. And I look back and I go, imagine if we would have just put like every shitcoin we played, every time we traded leverage, and just put it into Bitcoin and just let it sit there and let it sit there and let it sit there. How much of a better position you'd be in life right now. And it's just I don't know, what do you think it is, or when do you think it will be that we stop referring to Bitcoin as Bitcoin and we start referring to it as Satoshis? Because it would sound like, I almost feel like we're almost to that point where Bitcoin gets to a point where it's going to start being referred to how many sats do you have? They're like, oh, I got 0.5 Bitcoin. You know, it doesn't sound like, but when you're like, oh yeah, I got, you know, 500 million sats, it's a little bit more engaging. When do you think the industry starts, especially on exchanges, showing stats versus Bitcoin, because it becomes too wealthy or too big of a number?
Yeah, I think a logical transition is when we hit $1 million Bitcoin, and then it's sat to cent parity, right? 1 cent would be 1 sat. So I think that makes logical sense, but it could be sooner than that. I think as a culture, Bitcoiners should be referring to Satoshis more often to try to onboard people, right? I mean, you can still get 1,300 sats for $1. Right, and if someone said, "Oh, you can get 1,300 Dogecoin for $1," that would light them up. But we gotta make that transition. We gotta start talking more in sats and make that a part of our daily parlance to attract more people. Because unit bias is real, and people want to feel like they're getting something cheap, right? Especially if they're investing in it. So, yeah. Definitely by the time Bitcoin hits $1 million per one Bitcoin, we'll be referring completely in sats, I believe. But it could be well before that as well.
All right, man. We got about 4 or 5 minutes left. I wanted you to give a big shout out to all your everybody that you work for. I want to know who are the favorite people you follow personally on Twitter, if people are looking to learn and get more educated. And then I want to give a big shout out to everybody that's writing for Bitcoin News as well. So can you tell us a little bit about the people that work for it and how people can follow them on Twitter as well?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the people that work for Bitcoin News like to sort of stay anonymous. That's cool. Sort of part of the Bitcoin culture. But I will shout out my boy Daniel, who helps me on the Twitter right now. My fellow co-founder. He likes to say Anon as well, and a bunch of people from around the world. So, I mean, when you think of Bitcoin News, you can think of me right here, as well as Luke Mikic. He's on our YouTube side of things. He's doing almost daily live streams over there. You can check us out. If you go to the website and click on the video tab up top, you'll be able to go straight to our YouTube and can follow what we're doing over there. But Luke's got a big presence. Yeah, videos. Yeah, check out the YouTube. Yes, that's us. And right there is our interview that we had with Michael Saylor last year. at BTC Prague. He was very nice enough to sit down with us. And if you go to videos, you can see that we're putting out these 10 to 15 minutes edited videos once a week. And then if you go to live, you can see the 10-minute videos or so live streams that we do about 2 or 3 times a week. So we're building this out, and yeah, Luke Mikic is a great follow on Twitter.
Oh, that's so funny. I was literally just playing his stuff in my show last night, man. I'm a huge fan of Luke.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't even know that was him. Oh, that's so cool, man. Yeah, I was watching his video yesterday. I was actually watching his video this morning. He does great work, man. That's your partner?
Yeah, great team. Yeah, he just joined on Bitcoin News in the last month.
And congratulations.
Yeah, super good dude. Thank you. Yeah, met him for the first time in person in Madeira just 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So there was the Bitcoin Atlantis conference in Madeira, Portugal, which is an island off of Morocco, and they sort of have a growing Bitcoin community there, and they threw this really star-studded event. Michael Saylor, Jeff Booth, Preston Pish, Jack Dorsey, Jack Mallers, a lot of the Bitcoin heavy hitters were there in attendance and giving talks, and was able to meet Luke in person for the first time there. So definitely give Luke a follow. In terms of Twitter, who should you go after? I really like Thomas Faher. He's thomas.heyapollo.com. He runs a site called Hey Apollo, and they do reviews for different Bitcoin companies and services, and you can earn sats by leaving reviews there. So definitely check them out. They've got a great ETF tracker that keeps you up to date on everything that's going on with the ETFs. And I also like the account Pledator. Pledator is a great Twitter follow. He's not afraid to call out anybody. He has no idols in the scene, and he'll speak truth to power and call out people when they're going astray from the true Bitcoin path. So definitely check out Pledator. And of course, Bitcoin Newscom. Follow us on Twitter. We're out there. We're putting out 20 to 30 tweets a day, keeping you up to date on the hour, on the half hour with the latest news in Bitcoin. We've got videos, we've got articles, and spaces too. We actually, another follow you should do on Twitter is Juan Galt, at Juan S. Galt. He is our spaces host, and we just ramped that up from once a week to twice a week. We're doing we've got a show tomorrow, and then our usual show on Fridays at 11 a.m. Eastern.
11 a.m. on Fridays, and what is the second one?
It's going to be on a Wednesday this week, but then moving forward, it's going to be on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. So Tuesday at 4 and Friday at 11.
Oh, perfect. I'll definitely be joining in. And that's Eastern time?
Yep.
Perfect, man. So let's, we're kind of already going over a few minutes. You got a few extra minutes. I just want to hear where you think Bitcoin's going. What's your predictions for Bitcoin this year going into 2025? And then where do you think we're headed at the top of the bull run? Or is the bull run ever going to end, or is this global adoption and it's from here?
Yeah, so I remember last cycle there was a lot of talk of the super cycle, right? Bitcoin's it's gonna go to 100,000 and never come back down and just keep going up forever. And well, that was definitely wrong. So Bitcoin has a history of big drawdowns, right? Whether it be 77% in this last cycle to 85% at its worst. So I don't think that's necessarily going to change, but these ETFs have definitely been a influence that no one, I think, really could have expected just how powerful they've been, right? So they're gobbling. I mean, BlackRock accumulated 7.7 thousand Bitcoin yesterday, right? Wow. They're at 200,000 Bitcoin in total over the last 42 days of trading since the ETFs have started. So these guys are not slowing down. Their accumulation has just continued to grow over the weeks. And this is the first time that we've hit a new all-time high before the halving, right?
Yep.
Usually we hit an all-time high about 12 to 18 months following the halving, and then have the drawdown, and then go back to a new one after the next halving. So we just hit a new all-time high. We're at over $70,000 right now. Where do I think we're going? If I want to be aggressive, I'll say that we could hit 100K within the next 2 months. Mm-hmm. And then I think if things line up, if we get sovereign wealth funds in here, if we get the Middle Eastern states buying up Bitcoin, I think that we could touch parity with gold, and that would bring Bitcoin within the, say, $600,000 per coin range by the end of 2025. I think we could probably touch that and then come back down, maybe to the twos or so. But that's my optimistic prediction. On a more calm side, I would say we can easily see $250,000 Bitcoin by the end of 2025. So I think somewhere in that quarter to $500,000 range will be the peak, and then we'll come down to probably 150 to 100 when all is said and done in the drawdown. But yeah, it's an exciting time. You're definitely not late. Do not think that you've missed the boat. Bitcoin is here to stay. It's just 15 years young, and it's going to be here for, I believe, centuries. So you can set yourself up and your family for multiple generations if you're willing to sacrifice some of your time and effort and your dollars, put it into Bitcoin right now, and then sit on it, right? Don't be tempted to buy the next shiny thing just because it went up, just because it doubled, right? How many people did that when it doubled from 50 cents to $1 and wish that they had held it until it was $70,000? So
yep.
Think in the long term, have a low time preference, and be patient, but study Bitcoin. Learn about it. The more that you put the time in to read, watch videos, watch this show, you're going to realize the opportunity that you have and the paradigm shift that we're living in right now. This is the printing press was only invented once, right? And I think the same way with Bitcoin. So you're at the beginning of something that has the power to change the world. Don't let that pass you by.
Man, Rob, it was such an honor to have you on the show. This is probably one of the favorite interviews that I've done since I started back up this podcast. I would love to have you back on anytime. Even again, you guys got my Calendly now, so if you want to just jump on here for 15 minutes and, you guys got a breaking story or something comes out you want to come on and talk about, my platform's always yours. It was an honor to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us, man.
Cheers, man. Thank you very much. It was great.
Thank you. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you guys so much for stopping by the Crypto Breakdown. I don't know why I got my old nighttime show banner on there, but this is the Crypto Breakdown. My name's Ryan Matta. All of Rob's links are down below in the description, so please swing down there, give them a follow. If you guys are new to Bitcoin, BitcoinNews.com is going to be your source for the best news on the web. So thank you guys. Smash that like button on your way out the show. God bless you guys, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.